Education meeting to order. With that, Dr. McGinnis, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Certainly.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Board, please join the meeting if you haven't yet. First item on the, excuse me, the first item on the agenda is the adoption and modification of the agenda. If there is no modification of the agenda, I entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I would like 8.3 move.
Can we do the motion first and then we do the discussion?
Okay, so we'll have a motion. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
We have a motion and we have a second, and then we'll have a discussion with the removal of 8.3.
Second.
We have a second. Okay. Discussion, Ms. Pruitt.
I would like 8.3 to be 11.2 or 11.18. B, yes, 11.1B.
Karen, the site.
Or yeah,
So who was the first on that?
Susan,
Susan.
and then Ms. Carlisle, second. We'll wait.
Okay,
You tell
So-
us where you want it.
go ahead, Joe.
I was just suggesting by 11.1 because it's the same financial review. It kind of goes hand in hand with the bills. So we can do it however you want to. I don't care where you vote.
Are you wanting to move something from consent?
She's moving.
8.3.
8.3
Yes, ma'am.
down to 11.1.
Yeah, I was just trying to make it go kind of together since we'll be talking about the financial.
Or that might cause an issue because we already have 11.1 that's stated. So you tell us what you want.
Would it be old?
11.5.
Sure.
Bills per payment would be new business.
So it'd have to go under 10.
So under 10,
So just
10.6.
10.6.
Mhm. And the reasoning for that,
I don't need one.
to move, the reason to move it?
I don't need a reason, but just be
Okay.
specific because we need to discuss our bills.
So to allow discussion.
Sure.
Yes, okay. Okay. So then we'll have to,
So we'll modify.
and then,
So we're modifying the agenda. We're modifying 7.0 to move 8.3 to 10.6. Do I have a motion to do that?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a
We-
second?
We actually don't need a motion to move something from consent.
To adopt the agenda, we have to have.
Do
To adopt the
we have
agenda.
to adopt the
Yeah.
modified agenda. Yep. So do I have a second to adopt the modified agenda? Second. We have a motion and a second. Okay. Is there any further discussion on the modified agenda? If not, please vote. And by the way, the agenda has to be approved. So,
disregard the first and second, so I'll change that later.
okay.
And I'll change what we're voting on to the modification.
Okay, so we are voting on the modified agenda for this evening. Okay, motion passes. Next up, consent agenda items.
You want to give me a little bit of time to move?
Yes, please, sorry. You let me know. Pretty cold outside.
How cold is it?
Oh, is anybody gonna ask Dr. Moss? if you're gonna smoke while?
My pocket will bust soon enough.
The suspense.
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready.
We're ready. Okay, back on schedule. 8.0, or 8.1. No, next one.
8.0.
8.0, okay. Next item on the consent, next item is the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of 8.1, approve regular session minutes for January 15th, 2024. 8.2, approve program evaluation minutes for February 4th, 2025. 8.4, approve personnel report for February 2025. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented or as
So moved.
modified. Yep.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion on it? Please vote. Okay. Motion passes. Next up, 9.0, 9.1, comments from the audience.
I don't believe we.
Have they found these? No?
Okay, 9.2, correspondence, Dr. Moss.
Yes, we have two correspondents. One is from Mr. Warnerboard, thanking the board for the donation with the passing of his father. The other is from the Bebrock family. Mr. Bebrock lost his father as well. So just both notes to the board thanking them for their donation. As a practice, on behalf of the board, the administration always makes sure and does a donation or sends a flower arrangement with immediate family members' death. Please know we also send a personalized card from the administration as well. So just a couple of faculty members appreciating that you guys took the time and appreciated what they had lost in their family.
Thank you. Anything else at 9.2? If not, we're on to 9.3.
Yeah, superintendent update. Last month, we took the opportunity and rather than me fumble around and stand on top of Dr. Newhart, we let Mrs. Hedgecorth read about our recognitions. We have two people or two different groups we would like to recognize tonight. So I'd like to invite the board to go in front of the board table, and we have our student ambassadors that are part of real world learning and the Kaufman work. And then we also have a spotlight that MPER has with one of our teachers and the Grow Your Own program we have here in
Okay, so tonight we have the Real World Learning Student Voice Ambassadors. This year's Student Voice Ambassadors have been actively representing their peers in our district through leadership, collaboration, and service. They have participated in peer meetings at the Kaufman Foundation Conference Center, completing client projects as part of their program. Their involvement extended to College and Career Day at the high school, where they served as ambassadors, escorting industry partners throughout the building. Looking ahead, they will sit on a panel at the middle school before registration, sharing insights on elective and practical arts classes to help younger students make informed choices. And most recently, the ambassadors attended the Get on the Bus luncheon at Union Station on January 30th, joining over 600 attendees for this impactful event. Each student played a key role. When I say your name, please stand. Autumn Blankenship was a speaker and award presenter. Andrea Burns was unable to make it tonight, but she was a greeter and interviewer. Lexi David, who also is unable to make it tonight, was a speaker and program narrator, and Charlie Lamer was production assistant and stage crew. Their dedication and leadership continue to make a difference in our schools and beyond.
Hi, I'm Autumn. I'm a senior at Smithville. This is my family I brought with me today. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm a senior. This is my dad.
And also, I forgot to mention that Carol Noker, our real world learning coordinator, is who arranges all of this and gets these kids to these events. So Carol, come on up for a picture too.
Carol, please come up as well.
Yes.
Okay, next we have Jolie McCrary with the Grow Your Own Emper Spotlight. As part of our membership through the University of Missouri Partnership of Education Renewal, we have multiple ways to learn about research-based, learn from other districts, and share our story. Having a strong teacher pipeline is something districts across the country are working on, and it continues to be a focus for Emper districts. Recently, Emper set up an opportunity for districts across the state to learn from local districts that positively impact the profession. Mrs. Jolie McCrary was able to share on behalf of Smithville and specifically shared about how to set up and implement a high school course. She discussed everything from curriculum to implementation and how to set up student internships. Jolie.
Sure. Yeah, we have an upcoming meeting, but we're actually meeting 3 times this year. So we've had our first meeting and maybe it was October. Is that when it, I was asked to be a consultant for Emper by Dr. Tony Castro. And so our first meeting was in October. We have one coming up again in February. And then we have a follow-up meeting. Maybe it's coming, it'll be like in June, but the purpose is just to help school districts who either want to implement different parts of their program, whether it's a class or if they want to work on the getting the DESE grant for Grow Your Own, just kind of wherever you're at in the process, they have different consultants to help school districts further their program. So I've just been the teacher component of that. So cool.
It's raining. I really like it. Take a look. I was thinking like a dwarf or something, but whatever. Oh gosh.
Yes, you guys are welcome to stay, but also if you want to beat the colder weather that's coming, you're welcome to leave, and we appreciate you guys coming. Thank you again for coming and representing Smithville. The other pieces I was going to share with the board during the superintendent update is we have had a very challenging 6 weeks of school, and that continues to be a challenge for us. I am thankful for our calendar committee for giving us some input. I'm thankful for our leaders. We learned some new information just last week about the state changing some guidance on AMI days to allow what occurred today to be that 6th quote unquote AMI day and allow us to use all 36 hours that are allocated for school districts. And it took us going to them on Friday saying, hey, would this even be possible? And then our staff took time out of the Friday professional development day and during the building level time that afternoon to ensure that we had everything taken care of for our students. So I want to thank them. Just so everyone knows, we have exhausted our opportunities to make up any days now before Memorial Day. So any days that we would have from today on, we would have to make up after Memorial Day, which is very hard and something I've learned at Smithville is a very protected time. I would also say we have hit our max days that we can remember. Today is our 10th either snow AMI day that we've hit that we are not able to make up. So it's been a particularly challenging, I think Farmer's Almanac called for a bunch of snow, and I think the Farmer's Almanac nailed it. I am looking forward to 50 and 60 degrees. I think all of our kids are going to be running around because they'll have no idea that when 50 degrees comes in the fall, they're going to be wearing sweatshirts. But it's been a challenging. I appreciate the staff. I appreciate the families that have worked through this and been patient with us. We'll continue to do everything we can to get kids into our buildings without a doubt. But that is the update on the calendar. We do plan on bringing a recommendation for next year's calendar next month. We will wait until April to bring you a final calendar for this year. I'm not counting anything out the way January and February have been, so I'd rather bring one calendar for final adoption for this year rather than multiple. So that's why we're going to wait for April. But we've been very clear based on our calendar committee's feedback of what those days would look like. Happy to answer anything specific about the calendar before I have two other items I would like to share about. All right. No stones thrown tonight. Good. I had the opportunity last week, and this is something that I think Andrea does almost every week, and I know Mindy helps out quite a bit with. But over the last several years, the district has hosted the Feed Northland Kids. As part of Feed Northland Kids, it's putting bags for community members to come in and get bags of food. And they do a bag stuffing on Wednesday night. I had the opportunity to participate last Wednesday. I can tell you that having the ability for a big truck to come in and us not have to take the pallet off the truck, but to have a true loading dock, I know they're very thankful for it. I've only known it with the loading dock, so it was wonderful. But very thankful to see how many community members come together and pack those. We traditionally have a lot of Interact kids as well that come and help with that. And then they pass that food out on Thursday. It is a full sack of food. Usually they have meat as fresh vegetables and fruit as well. I mean, it is 180. Is that the
188 pack last.
188 bags that are then handed out, and it's everyone from some smaller families to, I think you guys shared a family of 12 comes. They don't get one bag either. It's not. It's a ratio that they pass out. And do you know how long that's been going on in Smithville?
Maybe 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
That it's been like
Consistent. But tremendous resource for our community. I'm so glad that it was happening. I just happened to have the opportunity for driving around last Wednesday night in bad weather to figure out whether we'd have school, but I was very thankful to do it, and I'm very thankful for our community that comes in and does it. And I believe there's a couple that has actually moved in to town, and they just always come because it's just what they do as part of their DNA. The last piece I would brag about is the Get on the Bus event, which our students were highlighted and Mindy shared about. It is a really cool event. There are 600 people from board members. Susan was able to go to business partners. We had people there from Meritas. Our kids were amazing, even having a kid that was the narrator over the entire event. And then you have those kids out there at 16, 17, 18 years old, greeting every one of those 600 adults that walk in and giving them directions, helping them know where everything is. So it's a really powerful event. It speaks to what Kaufman has I would say seeded with their 5-year grant that we're in year 3 of, just so everyone's aware of. That 5-year grant is something that is highlighted across the nation. It is something that is very unique to Kansas City, and Kaufman was the seed for that. But the way districts have collaborated and worked around that is amazing. There are 36 districts now involved in that, touching over 100,000 high school students, I believe. When you combine all of them out, it is amazing. And what those kids are leaving, that those market value assets that we heard Carol and PJ talk about last month, it is a difference maker for our students. So if you'll guys see that invitation, hopefully they'll do it again next February. Please feel free to come down and join us at a table. There's no cost. We just take up a couple hours in the middle of your day, and it truly is a student run event. that is very well done. I think Susan would agree. It was very cool. We were way too close to the stage. We were the front row. I would prefer to be a little bit further back, but that's okay. Happy to answer any other questions that you guys have. If not, turn it back over to you, Mr. Jacoby.
Any other questions? If not, 10.0 or 10.1, new business, deferred maintenance planning.
We got,
We got,
academic.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Dr. McGinnis. Yes,
Feel.
I'll skip 9.4 there, academic services. Over to you, sir.
All right. Hey, thank you for the opportunity to present a report from Academic Services. We did this in the fall, and at that time, we promised another update about this time to compare some fall data to winter data. As you know, we are in our first year with iReady, that adaptive assessment that tests math and ELA, K through 8. And again, when we say adaptive assessment, this is an assessment that changes questions based on how kids answer them. So it's not the same thing for everybody. It's hitting the same standards, but as kids answer questions, they kind of create their own little pathway. That data is brought back to us in criterion reference, which is their performance against the standards. What's nice about the iReady platform, it gives us that information, which is really useful for teachers. That's the stuff that they use to know where kids are and what they need to do about it. And then in our office, we use that as well as comparisons to a national norm, which is a lot of the data that we'll show. So as we continue to take this assessment, what we'll learn about is our comparison with other students in Missouri, other students nationally, but over time, we'll get to see how we can predict our scores possibly to the state assessment, as well as our scores compared to our scores over time. We'll start to create a baseline for the growth that we can predict within our own system and work with that as well. So Ms. Harwood and I are going to go through some slides to talk about district overview pieces and then next steps. And we also had a PD day on Friday. It's a really big day, so we'll have some initial notes from that, but more to share as time moves on.
Just a note real quick, this presentation is the same, it's just a little prettier now, so. The first chart, this is a district overview of where we are. What's important about this is the median of students. So you can see we would love to be at the 50th percentile, which we are, so we're right on track, but we'd really like to be in that upper right-hand quadrant, which again, we are. So what this math snapshot tells us is that, for example, like kindergarten, 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 7th grade, they all started with high performance, but they didn't have a huge amount of growth yet. But then you see 6th grade and 8th grade, they had a tremendous amount of growth. Overall though, like 2nd grade, they didn't, they have average performance with little growth. So that's kind of explaining what this means. What that also means though, is again, this is compared to the nation, we're right where we need to be. So that gives you a snapshot. That's what we can read from this. Not all concepts have been taught this school year. So that's where the criterion reference piece comes in. You know, this compares you to all, or this compares our students to all of the data that they will have by the end of this school year. And this is our winter benchmark. So with a half a year's teaching, this is where we're performing. So that's good news. The next slide shows you reading overall for the district. And with that, again, the median student, they've met, the median student in 5th grade has met 62% of the typical growth. So that's just an example again. And the norm's around 51. So our students are performing well. We're pleased with this data. As Dr. McGinnis had said, this is our first round with this new assessment. So we're learning as we go. Our building administrators have set goals and they're crushing those so far. You know, we're anxious to see what our end of the year data looks like. We will not take that again until later in the school year. So we have our full year's worth of growth, but this should be a predictor and we're seeing what typical growth is and what, there's another term in here with extended growth. So we're excited to see where our kids end up and what kind of predictor this assessment is for our district.
And a couple other notes is 80.5% of our grade levels in our building. So if you take 1st grade in Maple, count that as one. 3rd grade in Eagle, count that as another one. 80.5% of those classes are above the national norm. So just to put this whole thing into perspective for you. And as far as us taking this assessment in the fall, winter, and then spring, I know there's already been some discussion about the spring window. It's how many days of school will we have had since December to take this? We need enough instruction days that we know that we can move the needle a little bit. When we are part of the Success Ready Student Network, they rely heavily on growth. And this is a tool that they endorse as far as a measure for growth. And to be very transparent about a dashboard, if you go to a school like Liberty Public Schools, they have an extensive dashboard that shows their iReady assessment, but by student group, you can get a whole bunch of information. Really, there's no secrets about how students are doing. So we are beginning to adopt a format similar to that with a heavy focus on growth.
So our next slides really just show you in a different format. You see that pyramid? Just to make it really simple, we want to see the red and yellow shrink and we want to see the green grow. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So again, the red is at risk or tier 2. We went from 23% to 13. Tier 2, we grew again. And tier 1, I love that one the most. We went from 35% to 57% at that highest level. So we are showing growth. This is the district fall to winter for reading. And then the next slide shows you again what math, two slides. So Randy, skip ahead one more for me. And then for math, the same thing. You can see we shrunk the red and yellow. Well, the yellow is kind of the same, but the green then grew exponentially. So we're showing great growth from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year benchmark, which is exactly what we want to see on that. So it's just a good visual. Now, if we back up, do you want to speak to any of those others? If not, we're going to skip through the 5-point scale just because we sent you so much information. It's just saying the same thing in a different format. So we'll spare you a little time tonight. Next steps. So for the elementary, the next steps is to continue what we're doing. The teachers and administrators are working very hard at looking at data regularly in their PLC meetings, those professional learning communities. What is it we want our kids to know? How do we know if they know it? What do we do if they do know it? And what do we do if they don't know it? And they continually have those questions and setting goals with teachers, looking at their student data, and they're making strategies to meet those goals. We're doing the work, looking at our curriculum, making sure it's guaranteed and viable. We're doing a reading resource right now to make sure that we have the resources and tools in place that we need. And it's just continuous work. And so right now what we're doing is we're going to maintain and we're going to keep working hard to meet our goals.
I would add on just a little bit to get in the weeds. I was talking to the high school for probably an hour and a half today. That's a little bit of what we did. We did some data reflection, and this was a big part of it. And when we talk about the professional learning communities and teachers talking, here's what gets bubbled up out of that is the state releases EOC items, from past tests that you can use to gauge where your students are now with these standards. So what this PLC was able to do is give this assessment, not as written by the state, but we transformed it into a Google form and then connected it to standards. It takes time to do that. They invested the time to do that. So as kids answer these questions and we get data back, that is by standard, by kid data that they have. And what we found out is we're missing a little bit in poetry. There's poetry standards in ELA too. What we found out is what we're teaching right now, we're missing some of that. So what they're able to do in these meetings is go back and find ways to integrate that. Without those meetings and those structures, those gaps would never be realized until that EOC is taken in the spring. But because we have this structure that's ongoing, we can catch this stuff in December and January and make some moves. So that's the power of that structure and the power of that team dedicating time to being in those meetings to facilitate and tease those little nuances that really matter out of what's happening in our schools.
And then an ultimate goal, not only is seeing if there's content missing, it's having students analyze misconceptions. Take an assessment, look at your results. Did you go too quickly? Did you guess? Was the question written poorly? Really digging down and giving students ownership of their learning of why and how are they making mistakes, or are they comprehending, or are they meeting targets?
It's a great point. I was talking to Mr. Winterbore. He's able to track in real time as students are taking the iReady assessment. If a kid just goes through and ding, 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 hits them all, there's a little red flag that pops up. So when we talk about the data is really clean and clear, in real time, he can see if the kid's just blasting through this thing and then go back and talk to that kid about, hey, here's why this matters, because it makes us better to serve you. So if you get to the student and able to talk about why this can help them, why it can help us help you, you get a little bit more effort, but we can see that. And so the skews are mitigated when we have that kind of data.
So the next slide really is about our competency-based learning PD. Like Dr. McGinnis said, Friday was our PD day. We had our entire staff together for learning. I know you've seen our chart and our work of phases over time. This is just another model. We use Marzano Services to be our research base to this work, and that little tiny pictures, a book that we've utilized to help make sure that we're on track. And this is the foundation of the systems of what competency-based learning really means. There are 6 steps basically to this process. We are doing steps 1 and 2 this year right now. So we are identifying those priority standards, and then we're creating and revising those scales. And that work, it sounds like, well, why are we only getting 2 things done? Well, that's a lot of standards and a lot of grade levels and a lot of contents. And our teachers are being so diligent about looking at each one and making sure that we have clear understandings and clear targets and clear work for our students, because eventually we want our students to be like number 3, teachers to use those skills for planning and for practicing with students, giving feedback and student setting goals. And then in turn, looking at our exceptional students on both ends of the spectrum, and all the students then take such ownership of their learning. We make sure we have quality assessments, and finally, we worry about reporting those skills out. So we've been working so hard. Everybody in the district has been working so hard. I can't say we, all of us, have really put a lot of time and effort in this process. And so we wanted to share how things were going. Anything you'd like to add?
We have a little bit of data back from the PD day. It was similar to the format that we had on September 23rd. Some feedback was 4 hours was a really long time to do that work. We heard it and we were able to build in some breaks and kind of mix up the morning a little bit in response to that feedback. It seemed to be pretty well received. We have feedback forms set to go out to teachers, instructional assistants, and our small group facilitators. Initial feel is pretty solid, but we will be reporting that back. As far as quantifiables, 921 documents, scales or standard documents were modified or created on that day. So the amount of work being generated from that group is really high. That's coming off of 2 snow days into a 3-day weekend. We got that level of engagement. So really big shout out to our small group facilitators and the structure of the day. We're really pleased with what we saw and excited to get some feedback leading into the next PD day, which we may modify just a little bit because of the weather. So I think that's what we have. What questions can we answer for you?
No, it's just awesome. I like the how it's presented. I like how you guys are telling us what you're doing on PD day. So kudos to everybody. Yeah.
Thank you. I want to rush past it. Sorry.
Are you guys feeling okay with all these snow days? And I mean, is stress level high or are we okay? Yeah. We'll all get there. Yeah.
Okay, on to new business and deferred maintenance planning.
To recap everything, basically what you saw in the finance committee meeting is what you see here. The administration was asked to build on this deferred maintenance plan. That's what we attempted to do. You're seeing a lot of this for the first time. A lot of it was developed, much of it, in fact, completely was developed by Ian Sexton with work with Randy Wallace and Scott Bogart. It's very detailed. It's an extensive asset list, obviously, but I do believe that it's something that we can build upon and plan for, particularly in budgeting and where we want to go in the future. You will see Navitas here next month, I believe, is the plan. And as we go forward, one of those items is to look at an energy performance contracting That wouldn't be finalized probably till either the April or May meeting, in the financing portion. But it's very doable as explained in that finance committee meeting. This was an extensive process. Ian put in a lot of work. I'm just coming in and trying to transition it to the next person. So, I do believe it'll be useful and it'll be very beneficial to be able to have some established guidelines and budgets. As the maintenance costs are not going to go away, and you got to be addressing these on an annual basis. And really, that's what this is for. Any questions?
I have a question just to publicly ask. We talked about it in the workshop. I had asked, is any of these deferred maintenance items something that was on a previous bond that we maybe didn't complete? And then on 11.4, some of that does show what our bonds were, and some of them I do notice were HVAC or roof projects. So I just want to see what is it carryover and what's just different.
My understanding, they're not. Some of them, basically we're talking like on HVAC units, 20 years or better replacements, ones that we're having issues with. We're still in the completion stages of some things that we're on, particularly 23 bond issue with punch lists, with from the transportation building to, we do have that March 4th transportation meeting coming up with Jay Dunn. Even still in discussion here with the middle school track, obviously. So there are some items looming, but substantially completed that we're finishing up. But as far as this deferred maintenance plan, they're all items that have to be taken care of that are not part of previous bond issues.
That's all I have. Sorry.
Any other questions?
No, I heard it crash. I did too. I was like, something happened.
Okay, this is info only, not,
Thank you.
as we spoke about in the finance committee. It's a pretty good step forward for us as a school district. And yeah, we, every time, when it comes to HVAC, getting a, much larger plan put together than what we had in the past. So, and not only just HVAC and rooftop repairs, but this is actually way more extensive, and I think it'll be useful for us as a district going forward. So,
and there's many different funding options that was explained in that finance committee meeting going forward. And I think that's what you as a board are looking at, not only with this bond issue coming up, but with other funding mechanisms, whether it's lease purchasing, COPs, those types of things.
Yeah, correct. So, appreciate it. Thank you for all the work on that. Any other discussion on 10.1? If not, we'll move on to 10.2, mowing and snow removal notice for RFQ and bids.
Again, as recapping from the finance committee meeting, basically this is an attempt to see what is available to the district as an emergency basis, and particularly mowing and snow blading services. We're one mower, one truck going down, one person even going down, that we need some type of backup, in my opinion. I don't know what the cost would be on that. I have had some landscaping companies come, non-solicited to meet with me. And so I feel like it needs to be done through an RFP bid process, not again knowing what the cost would be and just seeing where it takes us. And finding those numbers. So this would be posted in the Courier publication here as early as Monday, I believe, next week, if there's no opposition here tonight with it. And again, I'm not going to do anything without acting and bring it back to the board for any type of approval. We'll see where the numbers come in, see what type of bids we would get.
So we've identified a need that we don't really have a solid backup plan. And this RFQ allows us to understand what the potential cost would be to have that backup.
Correct.
Very good.
Yeah, it's smart.
This is info only. So any other discussion on this item? If not, 10.3.
And I'll do a summary for both 10.3 and 10.4. I apologize. We missed bringing MSBA 2024 Policy A recommendations as part of our full service agreement with MSBA. They traditionally make 4 to 5 recommendations for board policy changes. Those changes are based on state statute changes, federal law changes, court cases that have come out that now need to impact our policies. That both of these are a first of 3 readings. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And again, I do apologize for not bringing A back in August when we received it.
So with 10.3 and 10.4, same thing. Let's get a motion in a second, then we can discuss on this. So I have a motion to approve the MSBA 2024 A policy update for the first of 3 readings as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Now we can discuss. Before we start discussing these items, Ms. Pruitt had a good point about these policy updates. This is first of 3 readings. And we can obviously make that 2 readings, right? So this is going to be a conversation that we'll throw out to the rest of the group. One of her points was that maybe not having this on the April agenda. So either moving this in the calendar to make sure it's not in the April agenda. I'm open for that discussion. And that should be a part of our discussion. And do we want to do 2 readings or do we want to do our standard 3 readings? Again, that's up to the rest of the board. But I would say with discussion, Dr. Moss would definitely, we want to make sure that we have this all approved before year end, June 30th. And typically, keep this in mind with June, we typically don't want to have a bunch of items on that agenda. So think about that in the discussion because that is our big budget and school kind of cleanup agenda items in our June agenda. So anyway, that's open for discussion.
I just thought there was a lot to look over and I want to make sure that I know some of these when I called MSBA, they said they do a blanket advice, but none of them have to be adopted. And she said some of it just depends on what your district wants to do. And she recommended having a policy committee look at it, but I told her we didn't have one. And I asked for that last year. I'm still going to ask for a policy committee. I think it's helpful to have somebody go through and read all these and be very specific. And that's my opinion. I don't know that this is the appropriate time to ask for a policy committee. I guess we'll wait for reorganization, but
we need to keep on the discussion of the policy updates for 2024 this evening. So
I think it's appropriate to have 3 readings. What I had actually asked was maybe we postpone this, but Dr. Moss's point was he wants to get this all implemented before the new year. So.
And since we don't have a policy committee, 3 readings I think would be sufficient. So like everybody has the time to go over it and double check. So that way we're not removing it. We all feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Everybody's had multiple options to review everything.
So
Or call it this meeting.
So calendar wise, making sure that we still go through and have 3 readings as a group. Okay, fair enough. I'm good with that. And if we wanted to move the April to May, we can consider that. It's all up to the group. Yeah. So up to the board.
Was the April concern like new people coming on and it was a lot all at once, or what was
my concern was maybe we not have this on this agenda. We just move it to May and just do a 1 read, just to not have our focus be on this, to have our focus be on the bond issue and the middle school track and other things I thought were more that we needed to dig into more than these updates. So, but it's here, it's on the agenda. So we'll just do the 1 at 3.
But there being 3 readings, it gives us 3 opportunities to discuss anything. So
okay,
I'm okay with that. First tonight.
And we're okay with a February, March, April timeline as a board. Okay. All right. Do we have any discussion about 2024 A policy updates for the first of 3 readings? If we don't have any further discussion, we can move that discussion to the second of 3 readings, so it'd be next month. So if not, if there's no further discussion, please vote. Okay, next up, 10.4 MSBA 2024D policy update for the first of 3 readings. Do we have a motion to approve the MSBA 2024D policy update for the first of 3 readings as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion on 2024D policy update for the first of 3 readings? If there is none, please vote. Okay, next up, 10.5 tax levy and bond informational mailings. We have a motion to approve the tax levy and bond informational mailings as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second, and we will open up discussion for tax levy and bond informational mailings.
Is this for having the district pay for? My caution, and we might need to do some research. There was another local district that got a stern warning from the Secretary of State for using public funds. It's actually a violation of Missouri law. To get involved, it should be done by a PAC, not anybody that works for the district or associated. So I think
Ours would be an informational mailing only, which districts are able to do through an informational mailing. Ours would not say vote A or B or those different things. So this has been a practice by the district. If the board would like to discontinue that practice, they certainly can. We have done and received 2 different bids from 2 different companies. We've used Axiom previously. We also, Cherry Road does our Warrior Wire. We also received bids from them to see what they would do. And based on the conversations we've had, we'd be looking at 3 mailings total, have those timed out where they come approximately a week apart, and then the 3 weeks before the election.
and what was the cost of that?
They're revising based on our conversation today. It is like $10,500. It might be slightly less than that. I can't remember because we cut out one of the more expensive mailings.
Is there a reason we wouldn't use social media platforms or between our website?
This would be in addition to any of this.
Right, but I'm saying that I would think that it would be best spent on where people are typically reached. And I know for me, I always thought it was wasteful for a district to use slick flyers in a mailbox. It's just a waste of money. That's my opinion.
Where I see it being helpful is our elderly population that do not get
Correct.
on social media or look at any of our school stuff. They actually get the mail and they probably read it. And those are the people that actually vote a lot. And so I get what you're saying. Most of us probably don't need it, but I would say a lot of our community does.
Right.
And the great thing about mail, you have to touch it. Like
Yeah.
everyone has to either throw it in the trash or that those few seconds. So I think it's a good investment.
In my experience, I get a lot of positive feedback from mailers, so.
And I love the transparency of everything. I think this is just another way to inform people.
That's great. And to Susan's point, we do this on every bond issue, sending educational pieces out. It's informational and it reaches an audience that we typically can't do through social media. So I think hitting multiple points and multiple multiple angles on this is always just good, because having an educated and well-informed population is always a good thing. So.
Joanna, not knowing what local district you're referring to, on a first-hand knowledge, the Secretary of State was wrong in that lawsuit, and the verdict was awarded to the district, not violated any issues regarding to the campaign.
That's interesting. So,
I didn't know that there was a lawsuit. They just got a letter of reprimand. So I didn't know that there was a law that you might
If you're
you're talking about a
If
different
you're
district.
speaking of the same district,
You're probably talking about maybe a different one
okay.
because there was no lawsuit in this one.
uh, and we're not talking about this as informational
Yeah.
pieces of.
If it's informational only, you're fine.
This,
Yeah,
this one's,
yeah.
this one's listed as action.
Well, he's saying.
Right.
information.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for being on. If we have, do we have a discussion? on this?
So, no excuse voting, right, is 2 weeks before, I
Yeah.
believe, so timing that, say that again, so that some of those early voters.
Yeah, so the first would come out, the best way to describe it, they call the date that they send it really 2 days before you receive it. So it almost looks like it's a full 4 weeks beforehand. So that person that went in very early would receive 2 of the 3.
Okay.
The third one would come more as kind of that recency bias, that Thursday or Friday before the Tuesday voting. You same calendar. Okay. I'm looking at Mindy. We were the one on the call. So, but that's the pattern we were searching for. There have been districts that have gotten that really late mailing. It's usually timed to come out on that Monday before the Tuesday election for anti purposes, I would say. So we were trying to line it up if something like that would come. We would have something that would be a recent memory as well for someone. If they would receive something that Monday, they would have gotten something from us that Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, please vote. Ten point six, bills for payment. We have a motion to approve the bills for payment for February 2025 as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Discussion.
I just wanted to go over some of these publicly because if I have questions, I'm sure the public does. I also want to say that, apologize to the board. I should have made the motion at 8.0, not 7.1 to move it off of consent. You're correct, Scott. It does need a motion on 7.1, so I apologize. So some of the bills that I wanted to talk about, and I did ask this morning at 10:30, and that's probably just Mark and I didn't communicate well. I did make a comment in the email to move that consent agenda to regular prior to tonight, so it wouldn't be disruptive. So I apologize. We probably just didn't communicate well on that. Some of the bills that I wanted to talk about, and like I said, some of these were already answered for me, but it's more for the public as well. Power School, I know we had a data breach. It was compromised, and so I'm curious if we'd explored the options on Power School. And I don't know if you want to go over each one or have Randy answer publicly, or you want to read the answer to the question, or
However you'd like to approach it, I'm happy to do whichever you'd like.
well, Randy, on the Power School.
Power School had a data breach. There were school districts in the area that were impacted by the data breach. We were not impacted. We were not impacted due to the firewalls our IT department has put in place. It was attack out of a foreign country. And just our neighbor just down the road from us was one of the ones that were impacted, but we were able to protect ours based on the work that Randy and his team do.
Awesome.
To restrict remote access as well as identify access that is trying to come in through foreign countries.
And the next one was solar panel,
Mhm.
$1,158. I didn't know where they were. I didn't even know that solar panel.
Yes, we have solar panels on our middle school, high school, Horizon, and Maple. As part of what you'll see from Navitas next month is they looked at potentially putting them on Eagle and seeing what the return was. I believe they're over 10 years old, 10 to 12 years old now. They have been damaged by hail and weather and those different things. If you look, and Navitas can show this to you as well, they did an energy audit on us of what we spend, kind of per square foot in our different buildings, and we're a fairly efficient buildings. There is savings from this. The exact dollars I don't know. This will be a decision we'll have to make at some point of do we continue with this? Do we renew solar panels? What does that look like? But I believe this was a 20-year lease that we signed into with the company.
You know when that was?
I think it was 10, 12 years ago. I'd have to go back and look at it. Do you remember, Dr. Newhart? You have the
I just got the document.
just
on my
pulled the
desk.
document. Yeah.
Oh.
Just pulled the document.
Synergy, 32,876. I was just curious what, if we have a contract and what's the annual amount and what's it for, so the public knows.
We do have a contract with them through the Children's Service Fund grant. It's not for a set amount. We utilize them for individual therapy for our students. So it depends on how many students have a need. So I have a bucket of funds for individual therapy. It is divided between Synergy, Beacon, and Research to Practice. So it depends on the needs of our students, but we will not expend more than, well, we shouldn't expend more than what's in our grant. Sometimes we're still working with them on our billing, but we've had contracts with them for the last several years through that Children's Service Fund grants.
The internet, $6,190.46. I was curious if we had RFP that we do. Who is it? Do we bid out every year? Is it a long-term contract? And
so we currently we have several internet connections. Well, one main one, but we do have Eagle and Maple but those are all under contract. And those are typically 10-year contracts. I think we're 2 years out, maybe a year, but we're still under contract, so we can't. But when we do, yes, that will be out for bid. And now we have a lot more providers that can offer us internet. It used to be we only had like AT&T. Now we've got a lot more. Yeah, so those will go up for bid.
our trash bill was $5,016.40. I didn't know if we'd explored other companies. We have Waste Management currently. I didn't know if that goes out for bid annually or how long those contracts were for.
We usually do a 5-year contract and overdue to renew that. So that'll be one of the charges that Dr. Newhart leaves for his successor.
The $3,800 for maintenance for turf Eagle Heights, was that for the preschool? Like
Say it again.
the Eagle Heights Elementary turf, $3,800 maintenance, was that just for the new? We don't have turf on the outside playground. That's one of
We
our
do.
bond projects, isn't it?
Expanding turf is part of the bond. We do have turf on the preschool playground as well as the regular playground.
Knew
It
there
was
some-
for maintenance fix.
Okay. Smithville High School S Club, $3,164. I didn't know what that was. It's now been answered, but it's helpful to.
I think it's a subscription to Quizzes, which is an online platform used to, similar to what we were talking about with those professional learning communities. Teachers use it. It's a per teacher basis to get questions, give them to kids and get data back. So it's one of the online platforms that I know high school math teachers use, but there could be additional teachers as well beyond math.
Is that a monthly?
I've seen it in my son's AMI stuff that they have been doing. So Quizzes is on there. Some tasks that they have to do.
The next question was smoke detectors, $22,870. We need those. I'm not complaining. I just was curious what building and do we have an RFP or is it part of a project that we did? Like,
So it was, the smoke detectors were added to Maple Elementary. When we offer before and after school care through Innovation Learning, there is an additional requirement to offer that because Innovation Learning comes in and uses our space. That space is held to different standards. We needed to add smoke detectors through that space so that way we can ensure our students' safety. We also had a door and other doors that we had to replace as well. As part of that work, this was all in preparation of us being able to offer that preschool aged opportunities for before and after school care.
Did we discuss that back in August or so?
We did. It was part of Ian's work. He anticipated at the time between, I want to say $40,000 and $50,000 total for the entire project.
Yellow Dog, $7,200. I don't know if that's Dr. Newhart or.
Uh, yeah,
Who is it?
that was labor to install networking switches.
Okay,
Did you say you asked about these before the meeting today? Or,
I asked about them a couple of days ago and
oh
then
my God. But you did get answers or you were just sharing?
no, I'm sharing with the class.
You did get answers and you're just sharing with the class?
Yeah, because not only does the board need to know, but publicly, I think it's good to go over bills now and then and let them know that we're asking questions about them.
Which is why the public meeting is posted in advance.
But they don't know the reason for some of these bills and I've been asked, so I'm gonna ask them publicly for explanation. The YMCA Kansas City, $6,375. Question was if it was an annual contract and if there are other schools like with nearby pools that we share, or is this like just we pay per lane and they didn't tell us that? Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, we pay per lane, so that cost is variable based on the number of students that are participating in that, whether in the fall for our boys swim team as well as in the winter for our ladies swim team. So that is a variable amount. It also is somewhat dependent on how many days are in the month and the students are available to do that. We do not have a contract. We have an agreement that we look at each year. We have shopped this agreement. The only other place that potentially would have space open is William Jewell, and the cost is fairly significantly more than what the Y is charging us in Platte County.
The other personal or personnel expense $24,000. Say what that was for.
Yeah, it's for several of our contracted services that were approved in August of what Andrea proposed through special education. This one specifically, one example is Summit Behavioral Services that we have. We bring those contracts to the board, as many as we can in August, and then there are a couple that will sprinkle in as we have to clean them up. But we try to get them all in August. There are some that we'll bring in September or potentially October, especially if we have new students that come in that would have different requirements.
Board of Education, $418,843. I asked what that was for.
So it includes the board treasurer stipend. One of the larger costs to this, all of our ESIP that we had several years ago is coded to this. So that's retirements and benefits for those that took advantage of that. Our workers' compensation and unemployment insurance is paid through here. Our audit, data processing. So we call that internally as RevTrack. Any of our legal services, like we had Drew here this evening, he would be coming through that. We are running an election this year, so the cost for that goes through there. Our MSBA full agreement. We also have supplies. The food that we have this evening also comes out of that bucket.
Two more, security, $173,880. My ask was this for the SPOs only or SPO and SRO officers?
All of our security would be coded through this, whether it is their salary and benefits, our MOU with the city of Smithville, as well as any training and supplies that those employees would need.
And the final one is, can you explain $517,650 budget for the children's fund?
The budget is set by the Clay County Children's Service Fund. I write a grant for that. Like last year, I wish I would have brought my notes. Maybe I did. Last year we were awarded, I wrote my grant for $1,038,000. When they came back, it was cut to $966,000 for 2 years. Then they amended it again later by adding $77,000 more to it for the panorama system. So it depends on what the Children's Service Fund Board elects to give school districts. Whenever they give us that money, we have certain categories we're allowed to spend in. And so the majority of our funds are spent on therapy for students. We have behavior support. We work on social emotional things like our Character Strong, our Hope Squads, any kind of behavior support that we do, and some stipends for our counselors to manage all of those therapy referrals, because it's a lot of interaction with parents and therapists and arranging spaces. We have a very set budget. We get audited through that system. So I turn in a monthly report for that and then do quarterly reports and have outcomes as well.
Thank you. I know it takes 10 or 15 minutes, but I think it's healthy that the public has that information. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. We already have a motion and a second, so please vote on bills for payment for February 2025. Okay, next up, 11.1, general financial review.
Yeah, and you'll see fairly typical reports in our January financial review. This is our big pay month, and I would describe us as being farmers. We're very locally funded through our community. So that mainly comes through property tax rolls. You'll see the revenue pretty high. We actually had the opportunity to meet with MoCat today to look at a fairly aggressive investment plan, not only over this year, but things that we would plan for over the next 3 years. And Karen's been working really closely with them to send them our monthly reports, and then they're giving us really good data on how to invest that to maximize our dollars. Our expenditures were pretty much on target and as expected. We do anticipate our revenue from the state going up over the next couple months. Typically what DESE will do is they will say, here's what we believe the SAT will be. They will take the formula funding. They will take probably 6 to 8 months to determine whether or not they can meet that threshold, but they withhold quite a bit back from school districts. So we'll start to see that increase. The governor did ask for a supplemental payment to fully fund the formula this year. I have not seen if the legislative bodies have passed that, but we do anticipate that being passed. It was not a huge ask to fully fund the formula for this year. Happy to answer any questions.
If not, we'll move on to 11.2, board subcommittees. Patrick.
Yeah, so we had our finance committee meeting this afternoon. We discussed the Navitas projects outlined above in our conversation, but looking to we've engaged to look at COP financing and what that may look like. Project list is now narrowed down and identified. We have some costing associated with those projects. Now we're working with Raymond James on what the COP might look like as far as financing those projects. We also talked about the finance workshop, which is coming up in March. And then we went through had a good conversation about deferred maintenance. Ian was able to go through that list with us. So that was the main highlights of our discussion. Main actions coming out of that is really that list we have of deferred maintenance projects. The ask of the board is as we start to narrow down that deferred maintenance list, trying to understand during our budget process how we get an annual allotment associated with that and what sort of allotment that needs to be. So we'll continue to work on that for our budget process.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for the update.
Did-
Any discussion?
Susan, I'm sorry.
She was going to wait.
Yeah, not this evening. So, okay, so that was info only. Next up, 11.3, middle school track. Let's see. Did you change this?
I did.
Okay. It's not keeping up. I'll get there. Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to hold both checks on the matter of the middle school track payment and retainage?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have any discussion on this item? If not, please vote.
So the yes vote on here is yes, we're holding them.
Yes.
Not a-
Correct.
Mhm. Sure.
Okay. Next up, 11.4.
We've been able to continue to have and filter the feedback from our 3 focus group meetings that we've had. We continue to look at prices and estimated cost. And while we have some, as our friend Mr. Saxton would share, some high level costs for the scope of work we want to accomplish, we still have work to do, but we've been continuing to narrow those down. We have, based on the feedback from the baseball and softball focus group that we had, removed keeping the softball field on its current location as an option. We continue to do work. Randy, we added some pictures late. You could potentially click in 11.4. There is the scope of work that we looked at that's specific to the high school, what that rough rendering of the front of the high school could look, as well as the floor map that's within there. And then there's also different baseball and softball projects that they put together. We do have Midwest Turf here, as well as Insight Design. If you guys have specific questions we would like that you guys would like answers to or like more information from, we'd be happy to add. They'd be happy to answer them. We did include the feedback we received at the community forum, where we had just over 80 people there in October, as well as the survey results, and then continue to work on that scope. There is just a history of the last 8 bond projects that we've done as a school district to provide some history, for lack of a better term, another history of what's been accomplished over the last couple of years. It doesn't have all the details, Joe, like what you were asking of, what HVAC units were or weren't done, but we'd be happy to answer any of those questions.
On these history of bond projects,
Yes.
with the exception of maybe some loose ends, most of these projects that were promised were delivered.
Yes, all of these are completed. The exception would be the 2022 that we are still wrapping up currently with the March 4th walkthrough, and then the middle school track. It's not performing the way we want it, so we're still working through those pieces. Yeah. But otherwise, they are all complete and done.
No, thank you for providing so much information. It's good to see. And it's interesting to watch the process play out, and I'll be interested to see what the next couple weeks bring in this whole thing. So
if you guys have any questions about the layouts, anything there, happy to answer them.
I guess, yeah, what are next steps with this to get some more feedback, get more insight?
Kind of some things that we would like, if there's a specific direction that the board feels we need to take. One of the things that, in talking with Cash last Friday when we spoke with him, the work we're looking at doing and the scope it at the high school, it's significant. Mm-hmm. And just that 16,000, just so you guys know, that addition's right about 16,000 square feet, which sometimes may not seem huge, but it's significant cost. Just that addition alone is probably $10 to $11 million. And then when we start with the hallway, the extended corridors, when we get into that ag science space, which I know, we've all been back there, we've all looked at it, and we start looking at those pictures that they provide, and you think about a fabrication lab, you make sure we have a robotics area. How does that industrial tech program not stop in 8th grade, but instead extend all the way through? There's some really big opportunities. So we're trying to make sure that if there's a direction that the board has, we would certainly take it. I know when you look at the cost of the 2 baseball and softball options, there is a difference. The biggest pieces I would say is if you guys want us to go and significantly bid those out, we can take that action. But if you guys have direction you want to get us, if not, I would love for you guys to tell us if there is. And then we want to, as far as that next step, I would like to start talking to those. I describe it as those most impacted. I would like our baseball kids and our baseball coaches and those key parents to come together and really let's talk about, okay, if we're going to do, what does the netting look like? How does the outfield come through? When we think about our dugout and our batting cages, what are the key pieces of that? One of the things that I would have never known, alignment matters in baseball and softball. Because I'm used to driving by Creekside and they just throw those things up so everyone can play, right? You want to maximize your space. It does matter. I would have never thought of netting. I played with chain link fences. Why can't everyone? It's because we've evolved, right? That was 30 years ago. So to me, that next step is, let's go talk to Johnny V. Brock more. Let's go talk to our fax teachers more. Let's really dig into those that are going to be most impacted by this. And I think that is our next step, is to, we've had the community larger focus groups, but now let's really dig into those very specific groups, and you guys would be welcome to walk along that path with us, but let's really dig in and get the details of it. You know, Cash, I believe, I'm going to speak for you here, so just keep shaking your head. Yes. Can give us renderings, right? The same way Midwest did for us this evening. That I think is our next step and can only further clarify for our community what exactly they're voting on.
Do we know the difference between option one of having one complex versus separating the two with future growth like they had talked about? The cheaper option with baseball staying where it is and softball going down. Am I missing a memo?
It's the second page. Yeah, that's the range.
But-
I think that hybrid field concept was eliminated a
Well,
couple
she's
months ago.
Are you,
saying
Or-
if baseballs and softball are next to each other versus.
is that what you're saying, B?
Separate, because the renderings we have here is one where the baseball field or where.
Yeah. So I'm sorry.
No, I was
Good
just gonna say, where the baseball field stays where it is,
Mhm.
it's not rotated or anything, it stays like it is, we're just adding the turf. And then we're adding a softball field down where the old soccer field is. What's the cost of that versus having them both at the same? And then we don't have that future growth like they had talked about.
Yeah, so the option one, which are the two fields side by side, current estimates anywhere between 9 and 10.5 million.
Okay.
I do want to be honest with all of these. We've asked people to bid high,
Sure.
certainly. But I would say 9 to 10 million. The fields separate, I would say between 5.5 and we have 7.1, but you could go to 7.5 within there.
Because with the amount of work that we want done, the school buildings that I think is a priority as well. We only have so much to spend, so.
That's a
there something
concern
else
of
that we
mine
map out?
also.
Oh, you go ahead first.
No, I was just gonna say that is a concern of mine is we've got a lot on here, but there is no way with the money we have, we can do all of this. But is that gonna go on the ballot and then people are gonna come back and say, well, why didn't you do?
So if you look at the first, we've left the bond language broad enough. We will be able to hit all 4 of these buckets.
We will.
Yes, it's the depth at which we do. We have been working with Mike Reich, and while we'll bring a COP specific next month for the Navitas work, we've also been working with Mike Reich to expand our capital dollars, and we have that opportunity with revenues coming in.
I just wanna make sure we do the
So
high
we'll
school
hit the
right,
4. Yeah.
because it's been piecemealed and
Right.
we
I
need
understand.
Mine stopped.
academic.
That's what I'm gonna get at is that we wanted, actually all of these projects, we want to do right the first time. So
Right.
maybe there's a way that we can hit all of them
Yeah, go ahead.
and phase it out. Like, we're planning to do this and the bulk of it can be done this first phase, but next phase, when we anticipate maybe more income, then we can continue that to build out our perfect phase.
Yeah, and I would, as you,
Don't know how we can present that or.
yeah, I don't want anyone to think of phases over like there would be a break, I guess is the way I would want to make sure and describe that. It's more of just a continuation.
Right.
Because if we look at most bond projects take 24, I don't know if most go over 24. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at 24, no doubt, with our pieces and how long it is. So we will have the ability to expand those capital dollars. $23-24 million is not out of the realm at all. I'm very comfortable saying that we could get to that bucket, but that 23-24 makes it really like we have bigger. I always describe like we have bigger needs than what we bond and go get at, and that's okay. Every school district does.
Yeah. And I think of the high school, for instance, renovation as a process because we're not building a brand new high school. So I view it no different than say our roofing plan or HVAC plan. We prioritize area of needs. We don't go replace the entire high school roof at one time. It's not practical. So we identify this area, and then tackle it. We identify a life cycle of all the other individual areas of the roof, and then we go after that as the opportunities arise. And I view our buildings similar to that when we look at internal renovations, where it's not really practical to renovate the entire high school at one time from a cost perspective or a scope perspective. So I don't think that, we could ever say that a high school renovation is one and done or a middle school renovation is one. It's not practical. So, talking about it in phases, whether that's the right word or not, it's really about, isolating certain areas and prioritizing direct needs, going after those, and then letting everything else flow into that over the life of that building.
And if you look at the Randy, I don't know if you can bring it up, is the PDF titled Warriors Connect presentation. And you look at that second slide.
And it's a significant investment in our.
Yeah.
This time.
Oh.
It's
But I'm just saying, if we do the top of that,
Yeah.
how do we get everything else done?
And I think that goes back to what he's saying. He's still having conversations with our bond and, looking at the financing to do even more. So
Yeah.
that way you can put more into the buildings and, pay with some of the other improvements with the other financing. So,
I think we just want to make sure when they vote yes, that they're getting what they expect and then we're not over.
We-
Absolutely.
Will you go to that second one, Randy, for me? As he's going to it, so those highlighted areas that you see, that we're getting 15 million right there to try to just do that. Now we priced out, when Cash talks about the 23 or even 24, is that what? Because that included almost everything, and you get to the second level, but just that area, it's a significant investment for us. And just for reference, when you talk about the 1969 building, that's the part we're touching. Obviously that purple edition is not, and there is a four-year edition that's on a library edition that's getting taken away. But that area that you see is the same halls that I walked, the same hall my brothers walked, and my brother's 12 years older than me, so I get to make fun of him a lot. He's almost 60.
Taking the library away, replacing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just want to make that very clear.
It'd be
Right away.
the library's getting a big upgrade. Is that?
Cool.
Yeah, that's.
The pump is prime. Something has to be done, explain for that. Dr. Moss said that for that. I think by the time we're going to get that out of conversation, we will make it all part of the front. Yes.
So that's what we do.
Our piece of their child.
Okay. Yep.
We know how big this is very important, and we know how we want to do right. We're excited about partnering and getting our students, our staff together. We are all very.
Can you guys tell me, I should know, but when we had the softball, baseball option, the option number 3, the cheaper one where they separated it, that went over pretty well, didn't it? Or did it? Okay.
There was favorable response to both. Yes.
Okay. I was.
The thing I took most away from it was moving away from the middle of the campus.
Right.
And then I did not understand the need for a potential, I had not heard of a changing area. And that is not something that I had heard previously. If you look at option 3 and let's say, okay, we have those bathrooms. If we look at creating a changing our area in there, there's that possibility because you've reduced that total price.
Right now they're changing.
Well, they're asked to change in the locker room, guys. The boys drive down there and change in the
I mean,
big
they are.
parking lot
We see
when
it.
they're told not to.
We all see it.
God knows. He has to look at them. But there's there's more opportunity to provide that space and area as well. I will tell you, the first time I heard it was that night, and I obviously not asked the right question.
Well, and one thing that I would like to see on these bids moving forward on the 1 and 2 is just comparing apples to apples, having, because option 1 was bid by J.E. Dunn, correct?
No, it was this is a combination. We've done a ton with, I would say the most work that we've done is Midwest.
Okay.
Go.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
There's the construction people.
High level budgetary.
Right.
And
He's like.
High level.
And I thought when I,
Ian.
sorry, I thought when I saw option 3 that night of the community discussion, I thought there was a future plan for tennis courts next year. This doesn't.
Yeah.
Right.
We just,
Fine.
yeah, their tennis courts as well as a second softball field that can be included in there. Absolutely. They've had that sketched in there.
Yeah.
What we didn't want to do is confuse.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd leave it out for the purposes of this.
Uh-huh.
discussion, But
But yes, there is
Just want-
space.
I just want to make sure we.
Which option was that? 3?
Option 3 would have a tennis court down right next to the softball field with a parking lot.
For future,
For future.
not in this.
That's not, yeah,
For future.
option 3 was.
It is. Tennis courts, it is. It's in the 10-year.
I just like we're considering using the space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think back to the meeting and that
Yeah.
was a big
Yeah.
excitement piece, specifically with option 3, they were like, oh yeah, because I think even how you presented it, you gave in options like, oh, if you wanted to add another softball field or a soccer field or something like that, I think is what you talked about in your presentation. I think that
Yep.
I think that the public really responded to that positively.
Yeah.
I think one of the concerns, and I've voiced this, is option 1, flipping baseball and softball was feedback.
It's, yeah.
And speak,
You say that again?
You have the room on that site. If you want to flip flop and put baseball in the north, softball in the south, you can.
Flip-
do either.
Yeah. I know some felt, option 3, I didn't like option 1 because baseball kind of overshadowed softball, which makes sense. Baseball is bigger. So I think flipping it, I would be interested to hear the feedback if option 1 was flipped, baseball and softball. Just seeing what the feedback is with that.
are you all from Midwest Turf? I'm new to the room, so I'm just,
What's that?
I'm new to the board. I don't
They
know.
were at the meeting.
Are you guys all Midwest Turf?
No, we're Midwest or VSR design.
Yeah, okay.
So
I can't remember everybody.
you have that option. If you put them both together, you can put either field on the north or the south. There's a few site constraints that you might want to consider, but I think the takeaway is that doesn't really change the price.
Yep.
One on the north, one be on the south.
Okay. And I didn't mean bigger,
Oh,
like
yeah.
a bigger
Same.
sport. Sorry, I just want to clarify.
Are you
But
saying the road?
I'm just saying size wise,
No, flipping.
field is bigger.
Put the baseball field in the north side, softball field in the south.
Oh, okay.
The only thing that could, a consideration, not saying yay no or the other, there would be some trees we would have to work through and see how they don't, you can call it not a pond. It's a marsh. It's a mess back there
Yeah.
that they would need to build up. I will tell you, I had breakfast with Wayne because I was trying to understand all the history and background. If you want to know where you hit rock in the district, he said, think of the level of the track and football field. Anything below that, you hit rock. So the soccer field by Horizon has been built up about 6 feet. They had to build up about 6 feet where the current baseball is, and there was obviously about a 7 to 10 foot buildup that would also have to occur. So he gave that perspective of rock. He also shared that you would be able to, scrape for turf. Is it 6 to 8 inches? Is that fair to say that you scrape and then put the underlayment on and
Days work.
drainage and those different things. Part of the other cost that comes in isn't just the excavating, flipping the baseball. Also, there's a cost to that. And if you were to switch it,
I thought you
that's
just-
kind of the difference.
I thought
No,
you-
not flipping in the way you're thinking of. Directional wise. I'm sorry if I misdescribed that. I'm not trying to contradict them. I promise.
I just, if this gets presented for some opinions, I would like option 1 possibly because that was the feedback. To be flipped.
Yeah, I think part of it is if we can get to 23, 24 million, we're just gonna have to look at where, I don't know if concession is the right word, but where we may change the scope elsewhere.
Yeah.
Which would change, we would have to change somewhere.
Very good. I'm excited for the next steps.
Is there anything else in the interim between now and April that we can do to look at high level costs? Yeah, I know that's a really rough question to throw out there, but as we're starting to narrow some of our focus, I know the high school remodel without drawings and plans, it next to impossible to get anything firm, but just say like on baseball and softball, with the two options being significantly different, is there any opportunities to really look at those? I know those like 9 to 10.4 is pretty tight. I mean, that's probably a pretty good estimate, but just looking at those, is there anything that we could provide you as far as feedback that we could look at those projects to narrow in maybe a tighter range? Cash?
I think that would help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
So would we schedule maybe one more specific workshop between those two? To
I mean, we can. I feel like, should we schedule one more workshop with the high school to get more information on what they'd like to get done there?
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if it's necessary for the middle school and elementary, but I think it would be important that I wouldn't want to do one without the other, because I feel like we would be going above and beyond for
I look at
a
it
group
from
that's allowed.
perspective. We're locked in on our spend. It's $18 million, right?
Yeah.
And you look at these projects, say the high school, 12 to 16 million dollars, just say it's 12. Okay. That gives us $6 million left. Well, the cheapest on the low end option is option 3 at 5.5.
Yeah.
So now we have $500,000 to put for everything else. So I think as it relates to baseball and softball, we need to understand what capacity within the facilities will dramatically enhance the students' experience: locker rooms, concessions, bathrooms, parking, turf, all that. And understand if we can get all of those concessions in both options, I think there's no doubt that option 3 is going to be the most cost effective. I mean,
We have to go.
and-
with that
and-
if we're gonna look at the other.
And I did not get to attend the baseball softball meeting, but I know at the high school meeting, it even came up that if you're gonna talk about taking money that could be spent on the high school.
Correct.
Please don't be diverting it.
Correct.
So I think that the main thing for the baseball softball is having their fields that match what they need, not having them side by side.
Yeah.
And so I think we would be answering the needs of our students and our community by going with the option that does that at the cheapest cost, which is option 3.
And I just look at option 1 on the low end of being $9 million. We don't have $9 million to spend on a baseball softball field. We don't. It's not there. We do not have $9 million in this bond to spend on a baseball softball field. Now the question would be: is there any potential to remove things within that option to get that down closer to a 5 to 7? Probably not. But
Do we have like a plan B for the financial gap between what we want and what
Yeah,
our
I-
actual cost?
I do think we can get to, I think that 18 will become 19 based on premium and sales. And I do think that we could get to 23 million, potentially 24 for this project.
So the pool.
I do.
23 to 24.
And we really have to explain, where does that money come from?
Yeah, it would come from
To the
a COP. Yeah, it would come from, for us, it would come from a COP. It would come from a lease purchase agreement where we would go out for additional capital dollars. It does take board action to do that, but we have the
But that only happens if this whole thing passes.
And I guess
yeah,
my thought would be,
sure,
spending an additional $2 million on option 1 over option 3, do we get $2 million worth of value? I don't see $2 million worth of value between option 1 and option 3. If both options have dedicated concessions, turf, lights, seating, bathrooms, if both options have all of those things, where are we going to generate an extra $2 million of value in that facility by just having them right next to each other?
I agree with.
I think you think about value, they don't play in the same season. So having them right next to each other, I think you could argue that there's some value of having them next to each other in the fact that you could use one softball could use baseball to warm up and baseball could use a softball field to warm up. Is that $2 million worth of value? I would be impossible for me to argue that that's $2 million worth of value to have that field next to each other to warm up. When
We did talk, sorry, no, go ahead.
$2 million is a lot of money.
It is.
That's more than we spent on the middle school turf field.
I
That's
think
a substantial amount.
the community, they did a really good job trying to take that in consideration. They had questions about what the cost difference was gonna be, and they were serious about taking that into consideration. That's why option 3 came up to be kind of a favorite then. When they started thinking about the financials, they were trying to be responsible. So I appreciated that, and they had a lot of good input. So it's proud of the community.
And option 3 does open up that road that they were gonna build, so it gives us that option in the future to use that area back there behind Horizon and stuff, so that, I like that too.
Yeah.
Maybe having another set of community events like you were talking about, say, this is what you guys came to us with as far as your preferences and your changes, which I know they kind of touched base on that at the end of the meetings. But bringing the changes in renditions or just kind of representing it. This is what you guys talked about, bringing it to you.
Yeah.
Do you still agree? Do we need to make changes or something? Maybe that's beneficial if we can get it in there before.
And I'll say something
We
just to,
can get it in.
just to be, sometimes I think I'm trying to say this right. But I don't know if we need to ask our community again. I think we have got their opinions. I think then unfortunately we have to make some hard decisions. That's what's happened in the past. I think we have done a wonderful job on this bond going out and asking the community much more than we have in any of the 3 that I've been involved with. So I do think that we're gonna get, the trouble is when you ask too many people, you get no good answers. You're gonna have people say, well, we have to have this, we have to have that. So that, I think we use our resources, the info that we have. It's just me, but I'm just saying from past experience, I think if we ask too many people, and then people are always gonna be mad that we did one thing over the other. But I do think we got some very valuable insight from all 3. Yep.
Thing, if I can.
Yeah.
So what came up after that meeting was the addition of maybe in years future expanding to have changing rooms. So we positioned those bathroom concession stand buildings to be able to extend them at least double or maybe even triple in size in future years.
Awesome. On both of the option 1 and 3.
Well, on option 3.
Okay.
Because option 1 is going to be a combined building.
Right.
for- I don't know why you would spend $2 to $2.5 million more than.
But option 3 right now, we're considering where we have changing area for the.
It was just not something I apologize. It was not something I was aware of, the changing it. I didn't know we had a bunch of boys standing in front of Todd every day.
Yeah, and so, I mean, basically next steps is really, I mean, it's going back to him, but not going back to him. It's going back to him with like more of the finite details, I think.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. This is just my opinion,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah.
And I think to
it's-
Susan's point
yeah.
too, let's say you go back and you give them option 1 and option 3 again, and all of a sudden everybody says, oh, option 3 is the greatest. We're like, oh, we don't have to think of that. Sorry. Like, that's my. You don't want to get into a position where you have a whole bunch of people expecting and wanting something that you can give them. That's if they're already happy with option 3, then let's get down to the details and let's find out what that looks like instead of up to potentially them saying, well, yeah, we want you to spend what 9 to 10 million on us is, so.
Well, in my, and I'm trying to think master plan wise, because in my view, like baseball, softball, those same categories, they go together,
Right.
that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So I
Logic.
feel like a lot of times with our district, we've done these like a project here, because
Yeah.
it makes sense at that time. And I just want to be thoughtful and not be like, man, what if they put baseball and softball together, 10, 20 years from now, when we're planning, all different buildings and facilities
Yeah.
around this area, like.
Well, and I look at option 3, for instance, that I didn't think about until after that meeting. The investment in that option 1's investment gets you a baseball, softball complex together, separate fields, but together in the same location on the property. But there's no other room in that location for anything else in the future. So all the infrastructure we're putting in that facility is just for that facility. When you look at option 3, for instance, I never thought of this till that meeting. All of that infrastructure we're putting in is for future use.
Yeah.
Say a tennis court. We could save a substantial amount of money on a tennis court if we go option 3, because now we don't have to include a parking lot. We don't. Water and utilities are already run to that facility, so it makes it cheaper to tap into those if we do another one. In 20 years,
It's a waste of space then by baseball. And I know I'm sounding like
Yeah.
I'm for option 1. I'm just trying to think.
yeah, no.
You are.
It's like, well, I just want to do it right. And
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, oh no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But is that not wasted space then in option 1? What would be next to baseball? You know what I mean? Because what would you use that for?
Didn't they
someday?
even
They
say?
laid out like a potential for a
Yeah.
second softball and
I
second
mean, there's
baseball
so many
field, right? We
things
just, that was
before
in
then.
there.
Like that's never.
Yeah,
Didn't
you,
you-
Yeah, sure. Sure.
But how? I mean, okay.
I'm going to tell you the field house is going to come. The field house conversation's coming.
Yeah.
Well,
Already
and
hit.
I
Springfield.
wanted to.
Yeah, it's
So, but I don't know that that seems like that would quote be fair if it's then because you're going to put it right next to baseball. How's softball going to feel about that when?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's legal on this field house, but I think people share some insight about the upstairs portion of it. So what was promised, what it was supposed to
We're-
be. So
we're not. Are you talking about the WAC?
I'm talking about the black.
This is, think of a indoor, almost practice facility, not specific to that, but it is,
Exactly
yes.
like the Chiefs.
It's exactly like the Chiefs, just, oh, actually, let's not use the Chiefs. It's a really bad one. Let's find a better one. We could use Logan Rogersville just built one.
so the
Ozark is
Ozark built one.
all of the big
It's cold half
Springfield
the
school
year. It makes
districts are-
sense. Yeah.
The South is
Yeah. Go ahead.
so we work everywhere, right? So it's a movement that's coming from the south. So Arkansas for years, if you are a 3A school or larger, you have an indoor of some size. It's now in the southern part. So it is moving.
Put it out 14
Now that
or 9.
Right. Band.
I guess I just.
Cheer. Why- I mean, I get it. Yeah.
We're at a 9.
just out.
Oh, no, if you know me,
Yeah.
for all of this, but I just want, I'm concerned that then that opens up like something that doesn't seem.
Well,
equal.
and you know that I would describe that as an option to put there. There are other places that Cash and I have talked about, and a field house option as well. That isn't right next to. It would be much closer to.
Like where the softball.
Yeah, it could be where softball field is now. You could, is the gentleman that owns the Aints.
Mhm.
You know, there is expansion of opportunities. I think that they're just an option. The one thing that I don't know is how to predict what it looks like if we add one more wing and that's 1,600. We hit that number.
Mhm.
That's a lot of kids, and we have a lot of kids that play baseball and softball in this community, and we'll continue to have a lot of kids that play baseball and softball. In this community.
So to be fair to our administrators, everybody here, what do we want them to focus on? I mean, we've got less than 2 months before we roll this thing out. How do we want to?
Well, I mean, to your point earlier, I think the amount of engagement we've had with our public has been outstanding.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, it's been great. And
Yep.
we've had a lot of input and a lot of engagement, which has been, I think is overly positive. So that's a really good thing. So, but to Susan's question, I don't know. How about anybody else? Go better.
I just think the concern with having it two is, oh, we're gonna do two, kind of halfway facilities instead of, so I think if you really get that feedback about.
What's halfway?
Yeah. I mean, they both,
They both
I don't
look
think
very
they're gonna
nice.
be
That was
mediocre.
concerned,
just
like,
because
oh, they're both
two.
gonna be
I think
crappy
that
pancakes.
Let's see.
I think if you look at the high end of option 3 versus the low end of option 1, even if you can draw that gap down from $1.9 million down to $1 million, you still have to ask, does option 1 give the kids and participants an additional $1 million worth of value over option 3? I don't see it. I don't, but I wouldn't be the person that, but just high level looking at the two, I don't know that spending an extra $1 million on option 1 just to have, the only thing I see of value is that they're next to each other.
Well, I'm gonna jump in here, both from a employee now, but also as a grandparent and a voter of the district. Your main problem that I see, and I saw this when I moved here in 2020, is your parking and traffic flow. Yeah. And the biggest question I have about option 3 is that.
Yeah.
I really haven't had a chance to talk with Midwest even further on the parking lot setup in option 3. I do believe you have a better chance for a parking lot setup with option 1, particularly if you develop parking across the street where the current softball field is at.
Sure.
The other advantage of option 1, in my opinion, is it is closer to the middle school and high school.
Sure. Yeah.
So those are the questions I get. I was originally a proponent of option 3, and I've kind of go back to that traffic flow and parking, not only for your kids on a daily basis, your parents on a daily basis as they pick up their kids. If you're not up here at 3, 4 o'clock, you don't fully understand.
How crazy.
How crazy it is. So I can see the advantages of option 1 from that aspect.
Sure.
And is that $1 million, $2 million plus? That's a great
Imagine your
question.
softball girls after school having to make their way all the way down
I
there.
played soccer down there.
Yeah.
When I was in high school.
Did you drive down there?
I think most of the time I walked.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
uphill both ways.
Not in the cold
So,
weather anymore.
I'm just saying, like, it's been done, but we've had a high school sport down in that.
And you do. I mean, that's the main entrance and exit for the buses down there by where in option 3 where the softball would be. It's the main exit for Horizon and most of the southern campus.
That's the only question I really got. And the other question I really drilled these guys on, and you probably have a similar issue both places, I would assume, but probably just because it's slow, was drainage in option 3.
You don't think there's a drainage problem in option 1
Well,
where everything
I do.
literally drains
I
down
do.
there, right? So
I do.
I think we have to acknowledge that both have
drainage issues. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe just for clarification, so we put 40 additional parking stalls on both locations. So the new parking lot at Horizon that's down at the softball level for ADA purposes is give or take 40 parking stalls. And then we put that same size on the existing road that actually goes to the middle school track to service both the middle school track and baseball.
And they will that will be ADA compliant then?
Yeah, so right now we've kind of planned in a sidewalk that actually goes from the middle school track and field bleacher area. It kind of has to zigzag to both down to that parking lot and then from that parking lot down to the
Where everyone goes now.
Do you have
off that road? Yeah. If you look at option 3, the baseball, and it has it kind of laid out general area.
Parking next to the field on option 3 in baseball, or you're saying that has to be zigzagged down? Because right now our issue is that we have to golf cart elderly folks down there.
Right, so they're, right now, the way it's drawn, and this could change, right? I mean, because it's
Sure.
not finalized plan. So right now, we have 40 spaces on the existing road that goes to the middle school track.
Mhm.
And then there's ADA sidewalks to go from there down to baseball and from there up to the middle school bleacher area. If you wanted to relocate that and put that down at the elevation of baseball, you could. It just doesn't really solve your problem for getting people from the middle school track and field down to the bathrooms, because that's
But
gonna
you could
be
do,
where they're gonna go.
but you could do 20 and 20 spots, right?
Possibly you could split it up, just.
I mean, I just, we have it.
Mhm. Is that on their?
Okay. That, yeah, that's my,
Oh,
that's
so
my
the green
concern.
light's on, so it's only six.
Okay.
Oh, now it's on, sorry.
Okay, yeah, because we need to make sure that's happening, so.
Thank you.
I know you guys are wanting to leave now, sorry. We're keeping long. No, all good, very good conversation. Thank you for clearing that up, Cash. I appreciate that. So. Any other questions, direction? Fine.
Here all night.
No, I'm glad that we're gonna get parking next to the field. It's ADA compliance, emergency services and access.
And
We've been missing that. And bathrooms.
Yeah,
and
you can't
concessions.
It's just nice that they force you to do it.
So did we decide, or are we still talking if we want them to really bid price out option 1 or option 3? Because that's Cash said that would be the easiest. I mean, I can understand why, because then you could really drill down all of you guys. I mean, that's, I think, a decision we have to make.
I would like to see this, but I think I'm a minority on this one.
No, I would like to see the bid difference, but I'm gonna.
Not bids, estimates.
Estimates, sorry.
Very critical. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
Patrick,
Yeah,
right?
but the
We're delaying it.
For both.
That's
They're
okay.
very
well,
small.
I do ultimately, yeah,
South Peaky one.
you're ultimately gonna go out for bid.
We get
Correct, it will.
bids
right?
or estimates for 1
Yeah.
and 3. Can we get bids for 1 and 3 so we can compare apples to apples? Or is that too far? Okay.
Money.
Right.
Yeah.
Project out to market. And you're asking.
Right.
Yes.
So if we're gonna go down 106,
Yep. Yeah.
But who gave the estimates for 1 and 3? Okay. Yeah. So we have option 1, JE done. Right. But you're more expensive.
Yeah, so just for clarification, so we sent option 1's drawing to J.E. Dunn. They did the parking lots and the building and the infrastructure part and the mass excavation and retaining walls. And then we gave the number for the fields and the lights and all that jazz. So it's those two combined. On option 3, we actually went out to contractors for the fields and the concession stand buildings, roads and parking lots. So those numbers are very accurate because we actually met on site with 2 general contractors that would build the building. So like we have 60 line item estimates. So option 3 is a very.
Am I correct also though with option 1, the original documents that you sent JE Dunn for field in, that is increased as well? Because what you showed for option 3, what we shared on Friday was higher than what was originally there because it was all new lights, new lamps, all of those things. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a difference between the relamp or the new lights option on baseball. Right.
Yeah.
Softball's gonna be due either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I just don't feel like we're getting, the same estimates then. A done in option one. Right.
Yeah.
I understand that. Yeah.
So option one.
Uh,
That's a lot.
Yeah.
This is a good option right here.
So that's what Jason done did all. I mean, I think he's probably less active, but we'd have to have a similar here.
Yes. Yeah. Geotech and all that.
Ready to go. Yeah, we haven't really done it based on a survey. We've done it. We know that we've done with it. Based on the but not to be full virtual. So I think that the option three on the software field, that's all that we have to do to the south. So I think it's not an issue we don't have to worry about. I think that's solved.
Yes.
And then somebody else who talked about maybe that.
I know it doesn't sound like it, but my preference is option one. I just don't know that we have.
Yeah, what? Oh.
I'm trying to look for, I want them to have a very good field because I agree with softball. What they have now is
Yeah.
not good. That's going to be a great field. I think we have to look at that balance between our academics and our athletics. And that's what I'm trying to come at. I'm trying to get both of them. Yeah.
And just operating that space, I'm like super scared about the excavation portion of option one. I mean,
But
you hit rock, you can't just abandon the project. You have to push forward, and the only way to push forward is to spend a lot of money. Right? I mean, a lot of money. We're not talking tens of thousands of dollars. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Whitney, think how important those bathrooms were at the middle school.
Oh, I am
I mean,
stoked.
if
for-
we do the option that it's more likely we can do those bathrooms.
You had a
That's what I'm
substantial
thinking.
amount of rock. You could take that 10.4 on the high end and run it to 12 million, $13 million very quickly. They just, and you have no option but to spend it. There's no like, you have to remove the rock. So that's what scares me. Whereas option three is a little bit more predictable in the fact that we're using an existing baseball field. We're putting softball on an existing playing graded surface. So it feels like to me option three, even when you do pre-construction and everything, is way more predictable from a cost perspective than option one. And if we wait to make a decision to Cash's point between option one and option three till we get firm bids, we have to pay for pre-construction documents on option one and option three, knowing that we're not going to recover any value off of one or the other. And that can be a significant cost. So at some point we have to pick between option one and option three, and we can choose to do it now for free or afterwards when we pay for pre-construction documents. So at some point we have to pick.
Yeah.
So
well said.
Mark, what would be the chances of coming back, say, 2 weeks from now,
For
a decision on that?
I don't know if it's reasonable to get documents and that done in 2 weeks.
No. Okay. Yeah. It comes down to whether we want to pay for pre-construction documents on both options or not. That's the only way to get firm estimates and bids. No. Yeah.
Do we have to vote on this or can we come to a consensus?
Wait,
or...
I mean, we don't have to decide tonight either. That's not.
I know, we're just saying, it would help.
Well, the only thing I would think is you talked about going to the public, or not to the public, to the high school and having further discussion, Mark. if that could be part of that discussion, if you wanted further feedback.
And maybe we could engage.
When I look at that feedback, I think we're trying to dig into the details of some of those things. If the
Not
board
necessarily
wants to direct us to go look at those things, we can, or go look at scopes, we certainly can. Of what I was referring to was more digging in, but happy to do either.
And maybe it's as easy as Scott and Cork getting with the two coaches and asking them to solicit feedback from their booster club, or they know which parents are super involved and interested in this decision. Maybe we go that path and just get some easy feedback from them on, hey, is option 3 good for you guys? Is option 1 a hill worth dying? That's what we need to know.
They already did the survey and said option 3, so I think, are we setting ourselves up as a board if the first option is 2 or 3 million more and we vote no on that, we went with option 3, are they gonna say, then why did you ask us? Then are we just making them mad, getting more feedback? We already got the feedback, we already got the poll. They already supported the third option.
I think what you said, Susan, is kind of pretty significantly where we go out to them too much. We did go out to them a lot, and they put in a lot of feedback and effort, our students and the community that showed up. So going out to them too much, I think, could get us in that space. I think we should just.
I think they've been pretty, like, really reasonable though. Like, people understand numbers, they understand. I just feel like, again, I know I'm saying the same thing, but even flipping it, no one said that at that meeting. So I just want to make sure that they had all options before.
What kind of scares me, so let's say we decide option 1 we're gonna charge forward on. We had a substantial amount of rock, a substantial project overrun. Something's going to get cut, whether it's bathrooms, concessions, parking, something at one of the other projects. The only way to pay for that is to cut something else. And so option 1 has the highest risk of, if we have a run or an encounter from a financial perspective, of losing some of the project scope that everybody desires. And not to say it wouldn't come out of that project, they'll come out of somewhere. And that's one thing we got to consider.
And we want this bond to pass, guys, so we need to make sure that we are, we spent a lot of money on athletics in the past. I mean, we have, and we've all said that we've got this perception. We haven't spent it on softball and baseball, so it needs to be spent on softball and baseball. But we also need to really emphasize that we're doing academics so that we can get this to pass, so that we get all of it, I guess, is where I'm
The
coming
good
from,
stewardship, I agree.
Well, and I think we're all excited and on board. It's just that's not something that we're not debating, like a layout of the high school, So
No.
I think if we were, then we'd probably have this.
It's just the extra money. Where does that, what can we use that for? Could we use it towards?
And I think the worst thing that could happen is, we have a cost overrun and have to eliminate, whether it be a parking lot or a bathroom or concessions. Those are the hard decisions I don't want to have to be in a situation where we have to make, because then we're going to have a project that's halfway done, like a lot of other projects we've been looking our past, and that's a scary thing to do. And I don't think it'd be fiscally responsible to spend pre-construction documents for both options.
I agree.
I don't think that would be responsible.
What would that cost me?
Tell me to surrender.
What do you think cost of pre-construction documents for both options would be? Just budget estimate, not a bid.
How much is my car?
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Oh, no. Pass.
Hundreds
pass.
of thousands,
Hard
not
pass.
tens of thousands for pre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, option 3 just seems like the smarter way to go. And I'm sorry.
I want to agree with that.
But again, master plan, are we, yes, even in the master plan, I feel like that is a solid option. It is opening the door to so many things and leaving the door open to so many things. Instead of,
We get this very
I've been watching over here and that's
the community
seems to be like, that would be a closed door, whereas this one is an open door.
I mean, Miss Carlisle has put in an excellent argument tonight. She has carried the torch on this. I know, give her.
And like I said, I'm pro.
That little girl's gonna be.
That's my first option.
You're
And wrestling.
Yeah.
I saw her in some videos of wrestling.
Just
So I think
at that meeting. I mean, they were leaning heavily towards option 3, especially when you mentioned the expansion. I mean, that perked up a lot of people. And I visited all the I did boards too. I and walked listened to I was creeping on everyone's I conversation. walked around a table to table. Like,
Creeping on
I can explain it. I was like,
I
what's
think
happening over here?
I think we're getting to option 3. I think now it's, I know you did an excellent job.
Fought a good
You
fight.
fought a good fight. And you know what? These are good fights to have.
They are.
Because this
I'm
is all very exciting.
Good discussion.
It's healthy.
It's very good.
It's good problems.
These are good problems
Good
because we're gonna do a lot of good for a lot of different areas. We're gonna make, our school's gonna, and students and staff are gonna take greatly. So this is really good, healthy discussion by everybody. So-
what time are most softball games?
Our softball games start at 5 because we have lights.
Yeah.
And that also allows our coaches, our elementary coaches, so they try to finish up that and they come in at 5. So
From a traffic flow perspective, having, if that softball field were to be South Horizon, really that after school traffic is already dissipated by the time that game.
Well, you've got to consider too, the traffic for the baseball field is right smack dab in the middle of all that too. So that to me doesn't make
Yeah,
a
yeah,
huge
right,
difference
yeah.
because they gotta come right into the middle of middle school, high school to go to the baseball field too.
I know this question came up before, but 40 spots is more than substantial for a softball game, I assume. I mean, a couple have been.
yeah, and things that we could add to as well.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
We absolutely could expand our parking lots if needed.
Like where the softball field currently is in the fall, and then middle school football, like parking is a nightmare.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
I mean, all the softball people, softball girls, people parking in the grass everywhere, down the street, and everywhere. So, that portion will obviously get better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Would we address any sidewalk, anything down to option 3?
Option 3 has that sidewalk to the middle school.
But
field,
does it
right?
have it?
What we could do is get one of the things that they talked about was either stairs or a sidewalk, because we have a sidewalk to Horizon. You can go in front of Horizon I know because I walked you down.
Yeah.
But I,
From the high school, you're going. Well, okay, never mind.
There's
continue.
yeah. Go all the way. The piece we're missing is almost as you walk by the Horizon gym down that hill. So they talked about potentially putting stairs or something there.
Still probably too steep to do a sidewalk that's ADA accessible, so ADA access would be in the parking.
Will be on level.
Stairs to get up to the parking lot.
At the top level.
And they've also sketched out, it would not may not and probably wouldn't be in this, but they've even sketched out what it would look like to add additional parking on that south side of Horizon's gym. It does fall off, but if we found that we even needed more parking down there as tennis was added, because tennis and softball are at the same time, obviously tennis and baseball at the same time, so we could add more parking there.
So we're providing direction to get
Are you good?
more fine tuning on option 3, going out for option 3 and for all the work in the high school and the middle school, obviously. Projects. So,
Which to be fair, you guys said option 3 is pretty firm, right? On your estimates. Okay. We're pretty close. Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, you guys were very helpful. I appreciate it. Thanks for staying. All the info.
Yeah, sorry to save you for last. Save the best for last.
Cash was supposed to come about 8, so that's part of the reason they were at the end, and then he got here at 7. Yeah.
The idea is to folks, anybody want to chime in with the summary of what we're doing?
Drill down on option 3.
Drill down on option 3, plus high school, plus whatever other projects we have,
Yes.
Middle school. Take it out to bid.
So you want us to take those projects out to bid, correct?
Do we have to wait for the
Bond.
bond to pass to
Yeah.
establish funds for pre-construction bids?
What we would do is probably do like an RFP. So request for proposals. We would need to work with Cash and team to figure out what that exactly looks like. Based on his recommendation, and Cash, correct me if I'm wrong, we would be looking at a CM bid. I apologize. We'd look at a CM bid for the high school, and we'd ask them to add the middle school piece on with it. If they were trying to charge us for 2 soups, or those 2 different project managers would decline that and just do the high school, but that's who needs to do the high school. We would look separately and not through a CM to do the rest of the remainder projects.
Yeah, I agree.
So I have a question about, and maybe this is not the appropriate time, but do we have to use J.E. Dunn on this project?
If we go out for bid, they would probably be one of our bidders.
Yeah.
But we could
They
open
wouldn't
it
be
up
the
for like the
only
Young Board or other people that might be.
Correct.
Feel like you guys just not charged us
Just
like,
clarifying.
but charged us to do that is the way I interpret that from Scott.
Definitely so.
Okay. All right, because this is info only, so we're
Yep.
just giving
Don't-
direction.
Like on, just to be clarified, like on baseball and softball, because of the contractors that work in that space, a CM's not really required for that at all whatsoever.
Nope.
So it'll be, just from that standpoint, our
Would not be
investment will go further than.
Well, and I think with the fields in general, we want to make sure that we're, I know a lot of times there's always the option to go with the lowest. We need to really consider the best.
Yep.
Because we know that we've seen the reports about the high school football field, right?
Yeah.
And so we do need that flexibility on making sure we're putting a quality product out.
Yes.
I would agree. I would agree. I would definitely not go with lowest bid, particularly on turf or lights. I'm sure they could tell you the horror stories that they've done with districts that have done that and ended up in worse spots than we are.
Well, now we're gonna get a bunch of high bids. I mean, like, I can't be the lowest. They said. Come on now.
I didn't think about it that way, Whitney.
And they'll be able to get, they'll be able to get.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beautiful thing about it is when we're working in this space, is they'll be able to get references on what the vendors have used in different schools and quality that they put down and the, level of satisfaction from those areas too. So
Your RFP could read pending bond passage.
Mhm.
And we could get that out here ASAP.
And will read. And to Dr. Newhart's.
Yeah.
He was kind of suggesting it, but I think.
But at least they let us get in position to move back a little bit faster. So I think that's the right thing to do.
okay. Fantastic. Do we have any other discussion on this matter? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Please vote if you would like to end the meeting.
Do not.
Think about it.
Come on.
Thank you guys. for
Welcome,
coming.
sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I assume
Thanks
everyone
so
got the
much.
call.
Yes, we all did all at once.